everybody, and welcome back to the Board Game Specialists. I am Melanie.
And I am Carla.
And we are now on episode 30, and this week we're going to be talking about our top 9 two-player only games. So these aren't necessarily games that plays best at 2 players, but these are games that are designed for 2 players only. Now, I have a fair bit of those in my collection, so it wasn't too hard of a list to put together. How about you, Carla?
Yeah, I have quite a few. I think I counted 40, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
30. Yeah, I have a lot of them. So, and I love them. I love a lot of them too, so they're really good. And I used to play a lot of 2-player games, but now we have another person who joins us a lot of the time, so we can play multiplayer games. Yeah.
Yeah. I made my list, and then I had one in my number 9 position that ended up crossing off because when I went on BGG to write it down, I guess there's a 4-player variant. So it says 2 to 4 players. And I was like, oh, no, that won't work. So I crossed it off. And another game made my list. But before we get into our top 9 lists, Carla, tell me, what have you been playing lately?
I have been playing The Rise of Queensdale. Now, this is a legacy game, and I probably wouldn't have picked this one up, but I found it at our liquidation store.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's normally a $90 game here in Canada, and it was $24 there. So I thought, I watched some videos and thought, oh, okay, I'm going to give it a try. So me and Cherry have started playing this, and it's basically like a legacy Euro game. But a lot of the reviews have told me that it's a little better than Charterstone, which we had played through that one. And at the beginning, I liked it, and then it kind of fizzled out, that one for me. So I'm hoping this one will do better. We've played 3 games, but the last 2, we didn't know that we were supposed to add these new buildings. So we were like, oh, shoot, that's why it was kind of a monotonous game. Because you can do all kinds of things. It's a dice placement. You each have 5 dice that you'll roll, and they will give you either like a resource on them or an action, an A, where you can do an actual action. And if you don't roll any actions, you can take the dice with a resource and use that as an action. And the actions are building, getting coins, getting bread, getting some other things that you can't get with resources. There are some things you can get with resources that you can do with your action dice, but it just gives you more of a variety of things. And what you're trying to do is build up your city next to this castle, and trying to obviously have the best castle by the end of the epochs. I think there's I think there's 9 epochs that you go through, which is basically a game. But if I don't make it to the epoch at the end of the first game and Cherry does, then she will go on to the next one, and I will still have to go to complete this one. So you can be behind a couple, but it says there that don't worry if you're behind, you can still catch up. So we'll see how it goes. Right now, I think we're both at the same one, at number 2 or 3. But it looks kind of interesting. It's like your basic Euro, but has some things where there's one thing where you'll flip a card that you'll read out loud, but the bottom is only for you, and it kind of foresights what's coming up in the game, but the other person won't know. Only you'll know. Oh, so we're all trying to find these cards or these little oracles or something so that we can each have this like little secret that the other one doesn't know. And I have one right now that I know something big is coming and she has no idea. So it's kind of fun. But another one I've been playing is Dale of Merchants, which is a deck building game. It's an animal game. I've only tried it solo so far. I haven't tried it multiplayer, but what you have is there's different animal decks that come in your box. I have Dale Merchants 2 right now, and there's like 3 plus there's like a big box or something. But and you choose which animal you want to use in the game, and every player gets to pick one, and then you will agree on an extra one. So if there's 2 players, there'll be 3 different animals, and each of them will kind of do a certain thing. Like each of their decks will help everybody. One will be like to kind of screw everybody. Another one will be to like, I don't know. They all do different things, but it's kind of neat how you can mix and match them all and have completely different games the whole time. And the only thing you're trying to do is get these 8 decks laid down, which are numbered from 1 to 8. So you will have to put all of one animal in the first deck, which is one card, and then the next deck would be a two. You can either place a two down or two ones of the same animal. But each animal also has an ability, so it'll help you like pick up more cards, or it'll help you lessen the number that you need to put down, and all kinds of things. It's just a neat little deck builder. One other one that we tried was crosswords. Now this is another word game. And it's kind of neat because it's got, it's kind of a take on categories a little bit, except that it's not by the letter. Well, it is, because you'll have this one card at the top that says like the letter K or something. And then you'll have cards that go out to the top of it and then also to the bottom, which makes a grid. And so you have all these little empty discs everybody has. And so the row like that goes on the left will have different things that it requires, like say a girl's name. And then on the top, if you're connected to that row that has like the letter K, you have to write a name with the letter K and you'll place your disc there. But you're trying to put things down that nobody else will say. Because at the end of the time, you will try to get all, I think it's 8 discs out, and then you will flip them all. And if you have the same as somebody else, those just get tossed. So you're trying to put all these unique names or different things that connect together down. And the funniest thing we did, or that Cherry did, we had to put something that was like, I don't know, it was like a secret and then like a kid's show or something, or like it might not even been that, but she wrote Humpatagus. And we were like, what is that? She's like, you know the big elephant from Sesame Street. And we're like, Snuffleupagus? She's like, yeah, that's close. We're like, no, Humpatagus is not Snuffleupagus. But, oh my God, we laughed so hard.
That's funny.
So I think that's going to be a good one with family too, because you're trying to race to do it, because the first person who lays all of them down, they count to like 5 or something, and that's all the time you have left. So if you don't have your discs out, too bad. So sad you can't put them down anymore. And then at the end, whoever has like an end of 3 rounds, I think whoever has the most discs wins. But it was quite funny because some of the things you're just thinking really quick, trying to get them down, and I don't know, it was pretty fun. But what about you? What have you been playing?
So we played a few games with the kids actually just yesterday. We ended up playing Throw Avocado. So there's Throw Burrito, and then Throw Avocado is another version that they've done. And Patrick loves avocado, always has. Like we would go to parties and they'd have a bunch of snacks for the kids, and then there'd be an avocado on the counter, and they'd be like, "Hey Patrick, what do you want?" He's like, "Oh, can I have the avocado?" And they're like, "Are you for real?" So and it's kind of been a gag thing, right? I got him avocado socks as a joke. And then when I came across the Throw Avocado, I said, okay, well, we got to get this for him. So I bought it for him last Christmas, but we hadn't played it yet. So we ended up playing. Now, I've never played Throw Burrito, so I don't know how much it compares to this one. I think a fair bit, since you can combine both games together. But with this one is you have cards. It's real time, so everybody at the same time has 5 cards in their hand, and you'll be drawing cards. You cannot have more than 5, so you got to discard. And when you discard to the person's draw pile to your right, and then you draw from your left. But then the person to your left is discarding into your pile as well, so it kind of shuffles all the cards that way. And then you keep discarding and drawing until you have 3 of the same cards, and you put them down. Now, if it has like the white background, you just put them down, they're worth 1 point. Then if you got 3 of the colored background cards and you put those down, they're going to create some sort of battle. So you have to announce what battle it is. And it could be that either the person to your right and to your left are in a battle, so they have to reach for the avocado, and the first one to get hit twice by these foamy avocado loses, and they get an avocado boo-boo token. And then there's there's different kind of battle. There's one where it's like you do 3, 2, 1 avocado, so you start back to back and you do 3 steps. Then you got to throw the avocado at each other between your legs. So every time, if you miss, then you still got to go around and grab the avocado, and then you got to chuck it, but between your legs. Like it always has to go between your legs. And it's a really silly game, but it was fun. And then after that, we played a quick game of Skull. And this is one that we still really enjoy. It's so simple. The kids like don't argue, be like, oh, actually, it was Lily's choice. So she was like, oh, let's play Skull. And then Patrick's like, all right, fine. And then so it was me, Lee, Lily, and Patrick, and we played Skull, and Lee ended up winning. But it's funny because like a couple of times okay, I'll try and go, and then I'd put two in front of me, and I had bid that I could flip 3 tiles, and then Lee had bid that he could flip 4, so then he ended up flipping his 2, and then he flipped up mine 2, and I had put a Skull in mine, right? So I was trying to bluff and trying to get somebody to outbid me, and then he did. But so with this one is you take turn putting a coaster in front of you, and it'll either be a flower or you have 1 Skull, and you have 4 coasters total, and you're trying to reveal coasters without revealing a Skull. And when you reveal, and you bid to say how many you'll reveal, but when you reveal, you have to reveal your own first. So it was neat. We played that one. Then we played Ingenious. This is a game that I purchased within the last month. And it's really neat. So you have the board, and depending on how many players you have, how big the area of the board you're going to use, and you draw 6 tiles, and these tiles are like 2 little hexagon connected to each other with shapes on it. And when you add a tile, and on the board there's like 6 shapes to start, but when you add a tile, you try to connect these grouping of these shapes. And then so if you add a tile, then you'll go from your tile and kind of spreading out in a straight line, and anything that has the same shape from what you've added, you get to add. So if you add a tile and it's next to another one, you would score 1. But if you add a tile and there was a line of 2, so then now it's 3 in a row, but you would score 2 for the line that you've created. Then if you add a tile and you create multiple lines, then you would score each of those lines. And you have your scoreboard where you would take the points for each of the colors of the combination you're doing, and you kind of move them up. If you ever reach 18 points, you get to play a second tile for free. But at the end of the game, you would look at all of your colors, you find which one is your lowest score, and that's your score. So then whoever has the highest, lowest score is the winner. But that one was really neat. It was fun. And then we played Grackles, which is about putting birds on power lines. And everybody has these tiles that have like these little crow-like figures on it. And then you got like these little tokens with the crows, and then you add tiles and you create a 5x5 grid of these tiles, and you can put crows between on the board that has 2 of your colors, and you fill in between. So you're trying to kind of create a big line, and then you fill in anything in between, but you can't cross anybody else's line. So if I put this big long line down, no, I've blocked across anybody else that would want to go that way. And then you kind of keep going until you run out of options stuff where you can add, and then whoever put the most crows onto the power lines is the winner. And then me and Lily ended up playing Bob Ross Art of Chill, and that's such a neat game. So basically you have like a Bob Ross painting, and you're collecting paints, and you're collecting paintbrushes, trying to duplicate the different elements in the picture. And if you do it before Bob Ross has done it, then you get bonus. And if you do it before the other players have done it, then you get bonus points for that as well. And then you get a point for each paint used in that that aspect of the drawing. And then whenever because there's 3, and then whenever somebody completes the painting, well, then that's done. It goes away and you draw a new one. But it's so thematic. Like you'll draw a card every round. Well, you roll the dice, and if you get the little Bob Ross figure, then you have to draw a chill card, and they'll be like, oh, this round you get extra point if you paint with orange or something like that. But then there's a little quote from Bob Ross on the bottom that's just so hilarious. And then, yeah, she just beat me at that very badly. But that was Bob Ross Art of Chill. And then the last game I played is Dragonland. I've backed Tiny Epic Viking. And then I ended up also purchasing in the pledge to get the Tiny Epic Dungeon Stories. That's the expansion for Tiny Epic Dungeon, because I hadn't gotten it when I had backed the the first one. And when the box came, it was this huge box, which is really unusual to get a big box from Gameland Games. So I'm like, what is this? So we opened it, and it had the Tiny Epic Dungeon stories in there, but there was also Dragonland, which is a Reiner Knizia game that I had not ordered. So I was like, oh, what is this?
Oh,
so
what a bonus.
me and Lily ended up playing it. Like, the components are super cute. So it comes with this thing. It builds a dice tower. It's you get the 2 dice, and it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's no 5, there's no 6. And then you roll the dice, and then you have the 3. Like, everybody gets a different shaped wooden meeple type thing of the 3 colors. So blue, red, and green. And then you would assign 1 dice to 2, like each to 2 of these characters, and so it's a roll and move, and then you're going from these volcanoes to volcanoes, trying to collect dragon eggs, trying to collect gems, trying to collect diamonds, and then when you're collecting these things, they're worth points, but if you create sets, then they're worth more points. And then whenever the last dragon egg is picked up, it kind of ends the game. So then you tally up and see who's the winner is. It was cute. Lily actually really enjoyed it. The components are great because you have these little plastic jewels of each colors, and then these tokens, and then you can have, because you can only pick up jewels, like the blue jewels can only be picked up by your blue player, and then your green player is the only one that can pick up the emeralds, and then your rubies have to be picked up by your red players, and so on, right? So it's kind of trying to figure out who to send where, and then eventually dragons will come out so you can actually fly the dragons so you can go a little bit further. It was cute. It's definitely a simpler game, but like I said, Lily really enjoyed it, so that was good. So those are the games that I had ended up playing. Now we're going to get started with our top 9 2-player only games. So Carla, tell me, what was your number 9?
My number 9 is Paris, La Cité de la Lumière. Now, this one was made in 2019 by Jose Antonis and Abascal Aespo. This one is a Polyamor game, but it has 2 phases of the game. So how you play is the first phase of the game, you will be drafting tiles, or you can be taking these postcards outside the game board. And the game board's really neat because it's the box. So you open the lid and take all the components out, and then the bottom of the box is the game board. So that's kind of neat. And so the postcards on the sides, like all around the box, are basically end game points, or they will give you like a little player power or something that you can use differently than the other player. And normally what you do is so after the first phase, you will take the tiles, or you'll take the postcards. And sorry, that's my dog barking. My son is home, and that's my daughter's little puppy who still hasn't really warmed up to him yet. But anyway, so the tiles will have 3 different colors on them. They'll have like a red, a blue, and a purple. Now the purple is neutral, and you are either red or blue. So depending how you place these tiles in the second phase, what you're trying to do is place them around these lights. So these tall street lights, that's how you're going to get points. So you're going to try and strategically place them so that you can cover up, because the board also has like these squares on them, and you're trying to cover up and kind of have an area control sort of with your color and connecting together. That can be some of the points. But you want to be as close to these lights as possible. Now the postcards, some of them they can add another lamp, so you may have built up somewhere else and then you can plunk one down there, or it might give you, you might be able to move one of theirs or use one of their colors, and it's all different things, but it's quite a take that game, which I'm not usually all about, but it's such a neat design and I've only played it a couple times, but I love it, and I want to play it again so bad. The person I played it with wasn't a big fan of it, so I'm trying to get John to play it the next time maybe we play. I'll pull that one out, but it's quite a unique design, and that's my number 9, Paris. you can say the rest if you want. I probably butchered
La
the
Cité
French.
de la Lumière.
Yes. Thank you.
You bet. And that one sounds interesting.
Yeah.
My number 9 is Radlands. So it was published in 2021, created by Danielle Piechnik, and it's published by Roxley Games. And this is a kind of post-apocalyptic world where you're kind of one versus the other trying to destroy the other person's base. So you start with 3 base, and then you have these cards, and you can add cards in front of the base to kind of protect. And the cards are all different characters, and then they can do different things. So you can kind of activate their abilities to do different things. But then you'll also have like event cards that you can put in as well, and then that will go on the side. And it will slowly, depending on what you have, like what level it's going to start, and each round is going to move up and closer, and then that will activate. And it'll do something, and either it'll do something that'll affect the other player. Sometimes it'll do something that'll affect both players, but everything costs water, and you get a couple of water drops token that you can spend to purchase the cards, activate the things. And I've only played this one a few times, and it was neat. I think I've lost every time so far, so I'm not really good at it yet. But it's a good thing I play to play, not to win. Not to win. Exactly. But that's my number 9, Radlands.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. I've have it and I've played it a few times, but another one I want to get to the table more. Good choice. My number 8 is Totten, and this is made in 1999 by Rainer Knizia. This one is a 2-player battle game kind of thing. What you have is you have all these walls set out in between you, and you'll have a hand of cards. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to win your hand on each side of the wall. And if you can win 5 walls or 3 that are like beside each other, then you've won the game. So what you're doing is trying, and how you win your side is they're kind of like poker hands. Like you will have like either a color run or just a run, or you could have like 3 of a kind, 3 of one color, but they're ranked. So like the highest one is a color run, and the highest would be a 7, 8, 9. So if you had a 7, 8, 9 of a color run, you were the first one to get all 3 of those cards down, you would automatically win that side of the wall, and then you would flip it over to show you've already won that one. But what you do is you'll pick up a card on your turn, and then you play a card, or you play and then pick up. I think I always get that mixed up with another game that's on my list here, but just the mechanism of picking up and playing. But you will play a card, and then the other person will do the same. And so say I had 3 or 2 8s down, and you had 2 9s there. Well, and you could prove that there was no more 8s out on the board. Like we had already put them in other areas and you had the last 8. Well, you would automatically win that one, because even though I couldn't get an 8, and say you all just put like a 7 down or something, and that you had a 9, and a 7, that would just be a total added up. And so that's like the lowest rank. But if I had 2 8s down and I had no other 8 to put down, well, you would have automatically won that. So you could just prove that, show me your other 8 in your hand or whatever, and then flip the wall. And then I would just have to play a card there, kind of a toss away card. So there's certain things that you can already, like if you have a bunch of cards in your hand and you're like, oh, I know what they're trying to do there, and that's not going to happen, but I'm not going to show them for a while because they're going to still try to build it up. It's really neat, and it's one of those games you play, and like I played it with my husband the first time. He's like, okay, again. He played until he could win. I think it took him 5 games to win, but it was so funny. And that's Totten, my number 8.
That is such a neat game. I have Battle Line, which is an older version of the same game.
Yeah.
But the look of Totten, the artwork, it's such a much more pleasing game. Just to look at, that just kind of makes the gameplay. I think it elevates the gameplay as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, good pick. So my number 8 is Lost Cities. It was published in 1999, created by Rainer Knizia, and it was published by Cosmos. And this one is really neat because you have the board. Now, the one that I have, you have the option of playing on two sides, whether you add the purple or you don't add the purple. I always add the purple. Why not?
Yeah.
And then each expedition, there's different expedition you can go on, and each one have their own set of colors. And you'll start with cards, and then you discard a card, and then you draw a card, I do believe. And then, so you could be discarding where you're adding them to your expedition. Or if you discard a card because you don't want to keep it, it goes on the board between the two players assigned to that expedition. So if you discard a blue card, I do have the option of picking that one into my hand. And it's really neat because you're trying to score the highest point possible by going on these expedition. Now, going on expedition, though, is very expensive. So the moment you start an expedition, you're negative 20 points. So you want to make sure that you add enough cards to your expedition that you are at least above that. But you got to also maintain numerical order. So then I'd be like, oh, this is great. I have a 9 and a 10 for this one. So I'll start this expedition because I'm already at 19. But if I added, let's say, a 1, then, and I don't have 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm waiting to kind of get those, hopefully, so I can add to that expedition, I could go ahead and add my, 9 and 10, and then I'm at 20, so that expedition actually scores 0. But at least it's not negative points, but it's not as good as if I could have gotten other points to add to it. So you don't want to put your big cards too soon because you're trying to accumulate some of the smaller cards. But then if you notice somebody the other player is starting an expedition for the green and you've got some good green cards, well, then you're going to hold on to them just so that they don't pick them up, right? So maybe it's like, hey, well, I've got the 5 here. And then, oh, great, they've played the 6. Well, they can no longer play the 5. Now I'll discard it. And then, so it's a really interesting game. Plus, you also have like the handshake card that allows you to double up the score of an expedition, but they have to be played before any numbers. And you can put multiple ones, so it'd be like double or triple or quadruple the score. And which is great as long as the score is in the positive, because if it's a negative, now you've doubled the negative score. And it's just an interesting game and one that I've enjoyed playing. So that's my number 8, Lost Cities.
Awesome. That's a really good one. I love that game. My number 7 is the whole gift series. These are all 2-player games. They're abstract strategy. The first one was made in 1996, and it was Chris Byrne who made this design. These are all very simple pieces and just a basic grid board. And they all are different. Each game is different, but they all have, I'd say, very simple rules. There's a few that are a little bit more complicated, but they're so good. You will play it. Some of them could take 10 minutes. It could take maybe up to a half an hour if you really, had some AP and were trying to think out your turn. But they're all so neat, and they just they just take you in, and all you're thinking about is this game and what are they going to do and what is my next move, if I do this, they could do this and this and this and win, or if I do this, that's it. It's like a chess match almost, but only with like less pieces and less moving parts, I would say. I toss around which one is my favorite, so I just said the whole series because I just love them all. They're so awesome. I'm missing one in the series right now, and it actually is a polyomino type version of it. So I need to add that to my collection. Yeah, that one's called Punct, I think. Punct or something like that. But the rest of them so far are just all awesome and very, very cool looking too. And that's my number 7, the Gips series.
Perfect. My number 7 is One Deck Dungeon, published in 2016, created by Chris Cielic, and published by Asmati Games. And this is one that I've talked about often because it is such a neat game. You each select a character that you're going to start off with, and then based on the character that you picked, it's going to give you access to different colored dice. So it could be that, I picked a barbarian and all the characters are female, so maybe I'm the barbarian woman. And then I get 2 blue dice and a yellow dice. Honestly, I don't remember which colored dice they get. And then the other player would pick another character and they would have other dice as well. And you have these cards that you would shuffle and it kind of creates the dungeon. And you would put 4 face down, and those are the 4 rooms that you can go to, and you would flip one over, and it'll either have a monster or a trap that you have to defeat. And when you flip the card, it'll say kind of the different things that needs to be resolved. So it could be that, you need a 6 yellow, but it's a bigger square, so you can actually assign multiple dice to it. And then you need at least a 4 blue and a 3 red, and it'll have the different shapes on, like the different squares showing what you need to resolve that room. And then you would roll your dice, and then you can start assigning your dice. Now, as you progress, you will also get the black dice, which is kind of a bonus dice that could count as any color as well. You do have, your character has some abilities that you can activate to mitigate the dice that you're rolling. And what's really neat is as you're scoring these or beating these rooms, you can add the cards to your character either to add more dice or to add new characters or to just put in your level tile so that you can kind of gain enough experience that you level up. And there's kind of different things that you can do with it. Now, if for any reason you weren't able to beat every square that's on the card, you would take some damages based on that. So it'll either be some health damage or it could be some time damage. So where you're discarding cards out of your deck because as soon as you kind of run down, then you have to face the boss monster. So you're trying to level up and accumulate as much as you can before you go to the boss monster. So you don't want to waste too much to lost time either. Such a neat game. I really enjoy this one. Obviously, I talk about it often. But that's number 7, One Deck Dungeon.
Yes, you have talked about this quite a bit. I have never heard of it before you had started talking about it, but it sounds cool. My number 6 is Patchwork, made in 2014 by Uwe Rosenberg. This is, I think, no, not his only 2-player, but because he's got a whole line of 2 players. But this one is different than his farming games. It's kind of, I think it started off his Polyamor series. I believe this was the first one, but not 100% sure. But this one is Polyamor, Tetris the game, basically. You have all these Tetris pieces that are surrounding the board, which is, the player board is basically just to keep score. And you each have your own blank boards. That is a grid. And you will just buy a patch, and the resource or the money they use is buttons. So that's what you will get for money is you pay with these buttons. So you will say one of these patches will cost 5 buttons, but then it also costs time. So it could cost, say, 3 times. So you will move your pawn 3 spaces. Now, if you are still behind the other person, you will get to go again. So it's always the person who is behind gets to go. And if you're on top of somebody, you are technically behind them, so you will get to go again. So you will just place these polyomino shapes on your board, trying to fill your whole board. But the big race is trying to get the 7x7 before the other player. Because your board, I believe, is either a 10x10 or a 12x12. But the first player to fill in a 7x7 gets this big point token, which helps at the end of the game. So you will just keep doing this, drafting all these tiles and place them on your board until you get to the end of your time, basically on the middle board, which kind of spirals around and then ends up in the middle. While you're doing that, you will pass or stop on these buttons, and that will give you income. So however many buttons are on your tiles, and not all the tiles will have buttons, so you really want to get those, especially near the beginning, to get a good income. You will get to collect income. So if you have 7 buttons on all your tiles, by the time you cross one of them, you'll get to collect $7 or 7 buttons. And that's how that will help you pay for them throughout the game. And then at the end of the game, just before you enter the middle, which is the end, you get another income, and you can still buy a tile. But you will count all the empty spaces on your board. Those will come off your points. And then you will add up all your extra money buttons that you have, and that will be your score. And if you had that extra big 7-pointer, I can't remember how many points it is, but the 7x7 point chip, you add those up and whoever has the most wins. Now, this could be a negative versus another negative. It's very possible, especially the first time you would play the game. You could both end up in negatives, and it's whoever has the lesser negative will win. But it's such a fun game and so simple. Like, you could teach this game literally. If you've played Tetris, you know how to play it, basically. But it's so fun and so satisfying fitting those pieces in and getting them like perfectly together. And oh, it's such a satisfying game. I love it. And that's Patchwork, my number 6.
Yeah, that's a game that I have purchased as a gift many times. And I think I've gifted it like 3 times before I got my own copy. And it was so neat. That first time I played that I didn't get a negative. I was like, whoa, I actually get a score.
Yeah,
so, yeah, great pick.
Well, they have like multiple different copies of it. Like they have like a Halloween version, a Christmas version, and all kinds of different
Americana one.
And there's such pretty ones now that I'm almost like, ooh, I kind of want to get a newer version. But anyway, they're awesome.
They really are. My number 6 is Onitama, and that one was published in 2014. It was created by Shinpei Sato, and it was published by Arcane Wonders. And this is basically chess, but you have your masterpiece, and then you have like the students on the either side, and one player plays as the blue side, one player plays as the red pieces, and the goal is to either capture the other player's master or to get your master in the other player's temple. So if you accomplish one of those 2 things, you win the game. And every time you play, you'll kind of shuffle the cards and you'll draw 2. So 2 goes to you, 2 goes to your the other player, and 1 goes in the middle. And these cards shows you different movements that you can do. So it'll have like a grid, and it'll have a blacked out character, a square, and that's the character that you would move, or one of the peons you would move. And it has like a colored space next to this blacked out square. So it could be that if you do this move, it allows you to go forward 1 and then to the left 1, or forward 1 and to the right 1, or straight left 2, or straight right 2. And those are, if you do this action, those are where you could potentially move the character. So it could be that, well, I can't go that way because I would run out of board, so I would have to go on this side, and I can't go sideways because there's another person, like I have another character there, so I'd have to go forward or whatever. And then you pick the action or the movement you want to do, then you swap that card with a card that's in the middle. So throughout the entire game, there's only going to be 5 moves that you can do, and you're trying to look at what the other player has, like, hey, well, if I go there, no, I don't think he'll be able to kind of attack me from there, so I'll go there. And then it's such a neat back and forth chess-like game. But because you have those cards showing you what the characters can do, and each character can do those movements, it's not as complicated as chess is, and it plays a lot faster as well. But I really, really enjoy this one. And then the mat is a neat neoprene mat that unrolls. The box is like has that magnetic closure, so it's a really neat box as well. It's a great looking game. And that's my number 6, Onitama.
Yes, that is a beautiful looking game. My number 5 is 7 Wonders Duel, made in 2015 by Anton Bauza and Bruno Cathala. This one is a game that was made after a big game called 7 Wonders. I prefer this game. I actually really love this game. It had started, I believe it started the drafting of like a pyramid kind of type of how they lay the cards out are kind of like in a pyramid or an upside down pyramid, depending what phase you're doing. Mm-hmm. But it's really neat because some of them are flipped up and some are flipped down. So the ones that are, and you can't, you don't have access to a card unless all the cards are off, like those cards. Like if there's a card on top of another card, you don't have access to taking that card. So you're just drafting cards back and forth, and you do have a few other options. You could instead of taking you would always take the card, but you could just toss it for money if you needed money, because sometimes you'll need money to buy resources from the other player if you don't have the right stuff in order to purchase the card. Some of the cards will be free because you'll have some of the symbols already in your tableau from other cards. And then the other thing you can do is build your wonder. So you can take that card, flip it over, put it underneath your wonder, as long as you have the resources in order to build the wonder. What's neat, though, is that the wonders will give you, as soon as you complete them, you will have all these abilities on them that you can do, or it'll give you more money, or it'll give you another turn. And only one player is able to complete 4. So you each have an option of building 4, but the first one to build 4, that's it. The other one can only build 3. So there's such neat, it's a neat back and forth game, just because it's kind of like a chess game again, because you have to think, okay, they don't have any of those wood, they don't have no wood, so maybe I will take all the wood cards, and then when they have to build something with wood, they're gonna have to pay me always. It's such a neat game. I believe these two got together to do this because the original designer of Seven Wonders was it Anton Bowser, I believe, and then Bruno offered to help him, or he offered to help him with this game, or vice versa, or something, and that one made the other one bigger, and they're like good friends, and it's such a cool story. But I've kind of forgotten in my head how it happened. But yeah, I'm trying to think where I listened to that. I think that was on 5 Games for Doomsday. One of them was on there, and they explained how the other one really helped them like become a designer and stuff, and it was really cool. But that's my number 5, Seven Wonders Duel.
That is a good one. And it's such a neat looking game on the board. Like, mostly I have like the blue cards as like you have the cards facing up with all the different colors, and then the blue cards face down, and like it's just such a striking looking game on the table as well.
Yeah.
All right. My number 5 is Arkham Horror, the card game. This one was created in 2016. It was created by Nate French and MJ Newman, and it was Fantasy Flight Games that published it. Now, one thing I want to point out, Fantasy Flight Game did an amazing job doing a tutorial video on this one. It's almost like you're watching a movie with like the thematic Doom music in the background and the way that it shows how it all works. That video is amazing. That being said, I still found this game really hard to learn. And I think it's just because this was really early on when I got into gaming, and I had never come across anything like this, and it just took me a while to kind of wrap my head around how it all worked. But this is a Cthulhu horror themed game. And you're called into the office of somebody, and you get into the office, and then all of a sudden the door closes, but it seals. Like it's like the door disappears and it was never there at all, and you're trying to make your way out. And so the story element of it is very interesting. And then it's all cards. So you have the card for the location of the study that you're stuck in, and you're trying to gather different things so that you can find a way out. And then you finally find a way out, and then you can go to the attic, or you can go to the hallway, and then these other cards come out. And the way that you can tell what's connected to what is there's a symbol on the bottom of the card, and if that symbol is found on another card, then you know there's a link there. So you can send your character from this location to that other location, but you'll come across different things that you'll need to battle. And then you have this bag of tokens that as you kind of go through, and you'll kind of draw that, and it'll kind of tell you whether make things more difficult or easier kind of to defeat these demons, I guess, that you're coming across. And you've got the cards, and you're collecting, trying to find more weapons, trying to find allies, and kind of to help you get through this. And there's many different cards set that you can add on to this to kind of add to the story, or to add new stories to it. I still only have the base game. I've played it through a few times. I was with new people every time, so I just kind of played it through every time. And it's very neat. It's very thematic. And then with the bag, you can actually, if you're kind of newer at it, or you can make the difficulty level lower, or you could increase the difficulty level. There's also an app now that you can utilize instead. Kind of bring out the token, but like the token could be like, oh great, instant defeat, that did not work out, or different things like that, right? But it's very neat, very fun. I really, really enjoy this one, and how it kind of all builds onto your table with all the cards, and then you're building your deck trying to get better cards that you'll have access to. And I really like the Arkham Horror theme. So that's my number 5, Arkham Horror, the card game.
Awesome. I've always been intrigued by this game, but never have delved into it or anything. My number 4 is Caper, and this is made in 2022 by Caper Europe, I should say. There is also a Caper game, but this is the newest one, 2022, made by Une Rubio. This one is how do you explain it? A battle game, but it's such a cool theme because you're both thieves, and you have this band of thieves that you will play a bunch of different thieves at locations, because you'll have 2 rounds that go, and you'll play each of those twice. So you'll have 3 thieves rounds and 3 gear rounds, and you'll go thieves, gear, thieves, gear, thieves, gear. And so you'll take a hand of cards, you'll pick a card, and then you'll pass the rest of the deck to the other player, and they'll pass it to you. So the first phase is Thief. So you will place a thief down at one of the 3 locations you have chosen to use in the game. And there's tons, because there's 4 different cities, I believe, because there's like London, Barcelona, and a bunch of other ones. So you'll mix those into the main deck, but you'll only use a few of the actual locations. So it could be multiple different types of games with the locations. And each location will give you a scoring power that you will have at the end of the game if you control that location. So you're trying to control these locations, and how you do that is by playing these thieves and moving this marker onto your side of the board and trying to get it as close to the end as possible, because you'll score more points and you'll be able to score the location. Now, you don't just win by having the area control the location, because you can get points also just from your thieves or your gear. So it's really cool, because you have to figure out, do I really want to score that location? Like, I don't have the right cards there, so there's no point in me trying to win that one. I'll just kind of let that one go. But you also have money that will go back and forth, because if I have like gathered all the money and you play a card that gives you money, well, it comes from me then, until we were even, and then you wouldn't get to take any more. But it's such a neat game. The gear is so cool, because you can blow up other people's gear on the other side, and then if it was a card that gave them 4 coins, they have to put them back. They have to, or if it gave them a bunch of control and they got to move like their little guy 3 over towards themselves, well, they'd have to move it back. But a lot of times you don't want to waste a turn in blowing up their things, because you want to build more on your side. So you have to figure out, well, this is going to give me like 3-4 points at the end of the game, but if I play one of these red cards, they're going to have to get rid of, coins, or they're going to have to get rid of a big scoring card that would have given them like 6 points or something. It's really cool, and it's so quick. It's probably like a 15, maybe 20-minute game. So fast that you can play multiple times, and it's awesome. And that's my number 4, Caper Europe.
Nice. Haven't played that one yet. My number 4 is Tanks. Now, Tanks was published in 1985. I was 5 years old. It's an old one. It doesn't have an author listed, but it was published by Epoch. And I got this one because my oldest son, Jerome, was big into models, and especially tank models. Him and his buddy would get models, and then they put these tank models together all the time. They also loved playing like World of Tanks and anything tank related. They were big into the tanks. And Tanks is a game where you're battling tanks on this board. But before you can do that, you got to put this little tank model together first. So best of both worlds for him. So I got him those and a couple of extensions. expansions, so that he's got all these little tank models he put together. Then you can paint them if you want. And we went and had joined a tanks league at Shoebox as well in Calgary. So, and then we had bought him like this mat. It's not neoprene, but it's like a plastic type mat that had like a desert with tracks kind of background to it. But the game comes with these cardboard pieces that'll show a barrack, or it'll show some sort of element that would be in this map, and then you put those down. And then we also got him like a little laser pointer that creates a straight line, because you got to, before you can shoot at your enemy, you got to make sure that you have line of sight, that there's nothing in the way of you being able to shoot at the other tank. And then once you decide, okay, and there's also like a little arrow that you would kind of put in front of your tanks, and then you can move your tank up to the base of the arrow, the pointy part. And then that's the movement that you can do. It was really neat. So cool. So you move your tanks and then you can attack. Or you can kind of reinforce where you are and attack. Now, if you're in the trees, you have coverage. There's different elements like that. And then you have the dice. So it's like, okay, so I'm attacking you based on the card of the tank you have. I can attack with 3 dice. So you're rolling. The other tank can defend. So they would roll their dice to defend. And then see if there's any damage that took place. Like, okay, great, so you did your turn, my turn, well, you're in my line of sight now, so I'm going to attack you, or so it was really neat. This also plays almost exactly like X-Wings, because I got X-Wing later on as well, and it's the same game but a different theme, right? This is the first one we had gotten, the one that kind of appealed the most to my son. So that's our number 4, tanks.
Awesome. I'd never heard of that one. That almost sounds like a mass market game if it was made in 85. Like, was it big back then? Like, I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I guess.
But it still had like a decent following now, because they were doing these tank leagues. And then these guys would come every Monday and they'd play this one game.
Wow.
And they all had like extra tanks they had purchased that they had put together. They all had different mats they had kind of built up, and it was great. It did kind of die down at one point, so I don't think they have that league going now, but it was really neat.
Cool. My number 3 is a crossover. This is Lost Cities by Reiner Knizia, made in 1990. I love this game, and I lately have been playing a ton of it, because you can play it on BGA, but I've also been pulling it out with whoever will play it with me, because it's so good. I love the fact that at the beginning of the game, you think, oh, I could do like 3-4 of these expeditions, no problem. And then instantly after about 3 rounds, you screw yourself and you're like, oh, I thought I'd easily get more cards than that. And then I see they have the 6, 8, and 9. But it's so neat. I don't have that extra. You must have the newer version with that purple card, because that's the 6th.
Oh, with the purple, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to try it with that one, but it's awesome and I love it. That's my number 3, Lost Cities.
Sounds great. Obviously, I approve. My number 3 is Raptor. So Raptor was created in 2015. It's a Bruno Cathala and Bruno Fiducci. And it was published by Pegasus Spiel. And this one is such a neat game. It is such a neat game. So one player plays as the mama raptor, and her goal is to get the babies out of there. The other player plays as a scientist, and their goal is trying to capture the babies so they can study them. And in order to do that, they'll kind of tranquilize the baby so that they're down. They'll tranquilize the mother to slow her down, to try to get her out of the way as well. And then they can capture the baby. With the mama raptor, she can move the babies, and if she can move them off the board, then they've escaped. And what's really neat with this one is you have a deck of card, and you each have a deck of card. It has the same numbers on it, and you would shuffle, and you draw 3. Then you'll put one face down to select as the card you're going to play this round. And they do the same thing as well. And then you reveal. So whoever played the lowest number gets to activate the special ability of the card. And depending on what card you've played, what it is. Tends to have that the higher number have a stronger ability, because it's going to be less likely to activate. But it could be that, like you can put up fires if you're the scientist, or if you're the mama, you can call the babies to you, or there's different actions that you can do. The person who's played the higher number will deduct the lower number from that, and whatever's left is the number of actions that they can do from their regular actions. So if I had played a 5 and the other played a 9, then they get 4 actions. Now, if I had played a 5 and they played a 6, now they only get 1 action. And you're kind of taking turns playing that way, activating your actions, trying to either get the babies out of there or trying to capture the babies. But it is such a neat, interesting game. And it's one that I've enjoyed playing quite a bit. And that's my number 3, Raptor.
Awesome. I haven't played this one, but we had this at our cafe, and I think I had like 3 or 4 chances to play it. And every time something happened, there was 3 of us there, and I just said, oh, you guys go ahead and I'll kind of watch. And It's funny because every time there's been some weird reason I haven't got a chance to play it, but Cherry loves this game. It looks really neat too, just having, because you're 2 different completely people and like you have a way of winning. But yeah, looks really interesting. Cool. That was your number 3. My number 2 is Botnik, and this is made in 2021 by Frank Critton, Gregory Large, and Sebastian Péchon. So this is a tile laying game, and it kind of reminds me a bit of Lost Cities, just because it is just you have this board in the middle between you, and you're drafting tiles, and you're placing these tiles on this board. Now there's a strip of the tiles in the middle, and then you each have a spot on each side of the tile on your side. And what you're trying to do is release these tiles to your side so that you can build all these tiles on your tableau. And what these tiles have on them is they're kind of like pipes. They have pipes, and some of them will have flowers. Now, what you're trying to do is connect light-colored pipes with the light-colored flowers. But you have to make sure that you connect them all so that they can all like flow through to the beginning. I don't know what the beginning would be called, but because if they are cut off somehow, well, then at the end of the game, you'll just have to remove them and you can't score them. But how you draft these tiles is you'll take one and you're going to put it either on your side of the board or the middle. Now, to put it on your side of the board, it has to be the color or the shape of the pipe the same as the one that's in the middle. Now, if you've got those all filled up, then the next tile you would take would have to go in the middle, and it will have to, if you put it somewhere, you can put those anywhere. And if it is not like any of the pipes that are on your side and the other player's side, those will be released, and that's when you can take them and put them in your tableau. So it's kind of tricky because you don't really want to release any tiles to them unless they can't use them. Then they have to like they do still have to place it, but they may have to place it in a spot where it disconnects things or it just kind of screws up their whole plan. So it's kind of neat because you're trying to get the tiles on your board with the most flowers, because those will give you multiple points. And how you score at the end of the game is you have to have at least 3 pipes of one color connected, and then they're a point each, and then plus all the flowers that are on each pipe. It sounds really easy, but it's not. It's a tricky game. And it's such a neat, it has a steampunk theme. Like you have these little steampunk people that you could also draft one of those, and those will give you like a different power that is really cool. But just how it's drafted and how you play it, again, it's probably like a 20-25 minute game. Be perfect to play on the deck. And I love this one, and it's called Botnik, my number 2.
Yeah, that's one I've heard a lot about and kind of seen, but I've never had the chance to try it. Looks interesting. Mm-hmm. My number 2, I purchased last month. Actually, I purchased it at Gobfest, and I played it for the very first time last week with Patrick, and I was so impressed with this. And this is Caro. And basically, you're far in the future. Kerosene is a really hot commodity, and you're trying to get out and take control of different territories so that you can kind of get access to more. And you have the best part of this game is that the component. Each player gets this little tanker truck. And inside the tank is actually this big sand timer. And you start with your tanker truck fully filled. And as you take turn, like you'll take turns. So I'll go out first, let's say, and then I put my tanker truck on its back. So I'm using the fuel. The sand timer is going. And I have access to these dice and I roll. And if you roll a flame symbol, that freezes your dice. So you get rid of that. And then you kind of keep rolling whatever you want until you get the combination that you want. Now, with this dice, you can acquire different cards. And the cards are going to do different things. They'll give you extra jerry cans so that you can refill your tanker truck. Or it'll give you access to specialty dice that you can utilize, or it'll give you access to extra symbols so that every time you play, that symbol is like you have one already, and so on. Or if you roll the 2 symbol that you need to deploy one of your player tokens, then you can go and put that on one of the different territories that's available to acquire this round. And you keep going and doing this until a end of round card comes up. So that ends the round. Then you look at the territories, and then whoever has the most control of a territory gains that card. If it's a tied, or if there's no tokens on it, then that just gets discarded. And then those are going to be counting as points at the end. The cards that you collect also going to count as points as well. But these territories could be like, well, it's going to score for every yellow card you've collected. So then you want to make sure you get yellow cards as well. Different things like that. And then you'll go through this doing 3 rounds. And then you never know where the final round is because it's all kind of stacked in the deck and it's shuffled in there. So at some point, the 3rd round's going to come up. That is the end of round, and then you tally up your points. But then you can also spend jerry can to refill your tanker truck. And then when you do that, the other player takes all the dice, and when you flip your tanker truck on its nose so it starts to refill, they start rolling all the dice. And they're trying to roll so that they all have that flame symbol. And once they've rolled this flame symbol on everything, you got to stop. That's as much fuel as you got to do. The whole thing is so neat. The components are amazing. The game was really fun. I really enjoyed this one. And that's what's my number 2, Caro.
That one looks so cool. I've seen it a few times, been tempted to buy it, but it sounds really neat. Awesome. My number 1 is Targi, made in 2012 by Andreas Stager. This one I've been playing so much lately. I actually stopped for a bit because I didn't want to get sick of it. So I'm like, that's it. I'm going to give it 2 weeks and then I'm going to come back to it. And I can't wait now to play it again because I've been playing it on BGA so much. I don't play it too much in person because I have so many games that when we have a game day, we kind of play different games, but I could play this one all the time. I love it. So what you have is you have all these cards that are laid out in a square, and those are your actions that you can take. And then in the middle, you're going to have cards staggered with 1 Targia and then a resource, Targia resource. And what the Targias are is these tribes in I can't remember where it is, and you're trying to collect different tribes and put them in rows that are either the same or are all different. You can put them, mixing them up, but you won't get as many points. If you have them all the same, you get a big chunk of points, and if you have them all different, you get a little bit less. But as soon as somebody completes, I think it's a 4x4 that ends the game. And how you get these Targia is you have to pay resources to take the cards, but the placing of how you're going to get them is you have 3 Targies, maybe they're called, and I think they're all called Targias, but you'll have, like, I'll be white and say you're blue, and I'll place one on the outside, and you cannot place it across from me, so that one's kind of gone. There's also another one that kind of moves around the board and will end the game if we take too long to do everything, and you can't place it on that one either, but you can place it across that one. So I'll place it there, then you will place one, and so on and so on. And then where all those once you've placed your 3, where they connect, you will also place a little disc. And you'll also get those resources in the middle, or the option to buy the Targia cards. And if you happen to have the resources, you can take the card and place it in your tableau. Once it's there, you can't move it around. If you can't afford it, you can take one into your hand, and you can at a later time pay for it and place it in there. The thing is that a lot of them require coins, and coins are very hard to come by. There's only a few that come up in the deck that you will get as a resource. And other than that, you have to trade a bunch of resources for coins. So as soon as that coin comes up in the middle, you are trying to get it, but as soon as you place one down, the other person is blocking it, so you cannot get it. So it's kind of a fight for the coin sometimes, but there's ways. I mean, you can get a whole bunch of resources and change them into coins eventually. It's such a neat game, and so different. I've never seen, it's a worker placement, but I've never seen one with that kind of mechanism. And that's my favorite, my number 1, Targi.
Yeah, Targi is really neat. And it's one of those that, I mean, it's an older game and everybody talks about. It's like, oh, you haven't played Targi? And it's like,
yeah,
it's one of those classic games that probably you should play at some point. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the whole mechanism is so neat with it. And that was your number 1, right?
Yep.
Perfect. My number 1 is Watergate. It's published in 2019. It's created by Matthias Kramer, and it's a Capstone Games. And this is another one that I've talked about a lot. And it's kind of based on the Watergate scandal. And you have one player playing as the Nixon administration, and you got the other player playing as the journalist. And it has a whole tug-of-war mechanism. At the beginning, you have some evidence that starts in the middle. You have the tokens that starts in the middle, and you'll play cards to move those towards your side. Now, if you're ever able to move them all the way to your side, you get them automatically. But if not, then whatever is on your side of the board, by the time you run out of cards for the round, then you get to keep those tokens to add. Now, as a journalist, you're going to use the evidence to try to create a link between an informant and Nixon to kind of reveal some information. As the Nixon player, you're going to take those evidence and put them on the blackout side because you've destroyed the evidence, and you're going to put them somewhere on the board to block those paths if you can, because you're trying to hush up the whole situation while the journalists are trying to reveal everything that's going on. And then it has an interesting thing with the cards where, because you have you can move these evidence or the tokens and you can activate that, or you can do the big action on there and it'll do something kind of a bit more powerful. But if you end up doing the big action of the card, that card again that gets discarded from the game, it doesn't come back. So you're kind of giving up your big moves to do your thing. So you don't want to do that too fast necessarily. You're trying to want to get yourself a little bit more set up. But it's such a neat game. I really enjoy this one, and that's why it's my number 1, Watergate.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was it for our top 9 2-player only games. We've had some great games. There are so many great 2-player games out there. And for me, it was great because that tends to be the player count that gets to the table the most. So that was great. Now, next week, we're going to be doing our top 9 survival games. I'm taking that to mean it's a game where your character or your player or you as a player can die. How are you interpreting the survival game?
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
You just need to... And typically, it's like a hard thing to do. Like you're surviving some sort of... you don't have to be, but it's some sort of climate or some sort of bad situation you're in and you're trying to get out or just, survive, live, basically.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Now, before we end this episode, Carla, where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram at Boardgame Specialist, all one word, and have a Facebook page, Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. What about you?
Perfect. Now, I've recently changed my names on all of my social media. And basically, it's because Board Game Mama was so confusing to a lot of people. You'd have Board Game My Man, and it was just to simplify things. Actually, it was my brother who contacted me. He's like, I've been thinking about this. I think you should change your name on YouTube. Like, okay. Okay, it's
That's
just
funny.
out of the blue. Me and my brother don't talk often, but apparently he's been watching my episodes and then he's like, okay, I think you need to change your name. So on Facebook, you can find my Facebook page as Mel and Friends Board Game Room. On Instagram, it's Mel's MELS _ board game _ room. And then on YouTube, it's Mel's Board Game Room. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Bye for now. Thanks for listening.